The number of refugees fleeing the military's violent crackdown in Myanmar is rising. India shares a 1,600-kilometre border with Myanmar, with strong ethnic and cultural ties between local communities on both sides. So India might seem the natural destination for those forced to leave their homes. But can those who end up there feel at home? We meet one woman and her daughters who have settled in the Indian capital, Delhi. A warning, some viewers may find this report disturbing.
For the last 6 years, Henny Lal and her girls have felt safe here in Delhi. But it didn't come easy. To get here, they had to leave everything behind in their native Myanmar. Henny says her husband was tortured and killed by the military. Years later, they were forced to run for their lives after they were caught sheltering students protesting against the military. Now, the situation in Myanmar is bringing back painful reminders from home again. Last month, Henny's brother was arrested for demonstrating against the coup. He was released a few days ago, but this still isn't good news.
Right now, he's in the hospital because when the military arrested him, they tortured him so much that we're told his face isn't even recognizable.
Protests broke out across Myanmar right after the military coup in February this year. Since then, hundreds have been killed, arrested, and detained for opposing the armed forces. And the numbers are likely to rise. India and Myanmar share a long border. In times like these, people have often fled across border into India to escape the authorities. But the Indian government is not happy with the influx of refugees. It has ramped up border security to stop them. Here in Delhi, where thousands have sought asylum since the late 80s, Burmese refugees are disappointed by India's lack of support. They worry about friends and relatives back home, as internet shutdowns slow regular updates to just a trickle. Requests for information have been pouring in to James Fanai, who heads a refugee support group here. The group has written to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, urging him to condemn the putsch as a democratic country. They are shocked by his silence.
It is in their side that how things are, in Myanmar. The violence, the human rights violations, the way the military torture the people, just shooting at them in the street, and dead body lie, But India is doing nothing.
Henny feels helpless in her safety because she can do nothing for those back home. But she believes that the international community should speak up.
Our sisters and brothers have to defend themselves against the military with their bare hands. They don't have any saviors. Please, I beg other countries to help Myanmar citizens.
Even before the coup, Henny knew Myanmar would never be safe for her again. She worries that if things remain as bad as they are, far too many people in her home country will end up feeling the same.
For more now, I'm joined by DW's Namisha Jaiswal in Delhi. First of all, Namisha, do we know how many people from Myanmar have fled to India since the coup started?
Well, Terry, current estimates range between 1,000 to 1,800 people who have fled across the border into Indian states neighboring the country, and these estimates come from these states themselves. Now, initially, most of those fleeing were police officers because they refused to align themselves with the military's instructions to crack down on their fellow citizens. But now there are also other civilians, women and children, who are fleeing alongside them. We see images of some of them in our story. There are safe houses now which are sheltering some of these people, especially in the state of Mizoram.
So you've got safe houses there, but how is India's government in general treating those who have fled Myanmar?
Well, there is a divide between the national government and the states bordering Myanmar because the Indian government has put pressure and issued advisories to these states asking them to turn away refugees. They've also ramped up security along the border, trying to seal it. There was also a controversial advisory asking these states to politely refuse assistance to refugees fleeing into India, but this was quickly withdrawn later the same evening because of backlash. Leaders from the states neighboring Myanmar, which have deep ties with Myanmar, ethnic ties as well as social ties, have insisted that they cannot stand by and watch. One of them wrote into Prime Minister Modi saying we cannot just wait and watch while such violence is breaking out in our own backyard. We must help the people of Myanmar.
Now, India has issued statements condemning the violence in Myanmar, but not the coup itself. What is the Indian government's position on the military junta in Myanmar?
Well, Terry, so far the only emphatic statement that has been issued by India simply expresses deep concern about the political turmoil. It hasn't really spoken about the coup, as you mentioned. But it does seem that India is holding back because of its efforts to build ties with the military junta over the last 2.5 decades. This wasn't always the case. At one time, India strongly supported just the democratic movement. But there are two key factors which experts believe are influencing India's decisions right now. One is that the Myanmar military supports India in countering insurgent movements along its own border, especially insurgency within India's northeastern states themselves. And secondly, India is trying to counter Chinese influence in the region as well. India shares a 1,600-kilometer border with Myanmar and would be very concerned if China's already great influence continues to grow.
Nimisha, thank you very much. DW's Nimisha Jaiswal there in Delhi.